Hello friends, today is February 10th, 2026. Let's talk about wins, losses and takeaways in the world of game development from the perspective of an industry insider. Let's start with Xbox. Microsoft recently released a big Q2 2026 earnings report, and while the company is doing quite well, the gaming division is not. According to an official press release, the company's revenue is up by 17% to 81.3 billion, but this growth is mostly driven by cloud and AI businesses. And in the meantime, gaming revenue declined by approximately 9% overall. Xbox content and services revenue down by approximately 5%, which includes Game Pass and other digital sales. And Xbox hardware revenue plunged by a staggering 32%. Unfortunately, Microsoft didn't divulge any specific numbers, for example, units sold in terms of consoles or games, but this is quite a big drop after previously reported solid numbers in Q1. And while the overall growth of the company may mitigate some of the shareholders' disappointment, it is certainly not a good sign for Xbox. Especially after all the rumors about very high profit margin goals that were circling last year. Personally, I think the decline in hardware revenue could be easily explained, as the company went through several price hikes recently. With that, I suspect the people are just not ready to open up their wallets for a console that might be at the end of its cycle. And if we're talking about games, Microsoft's push towards a live service ecosystem surely isn't working out for them so well. The only positive thing that Xbox has going for it is the multi-platform releases. But since it's a relatively new strategy, it didn't have enough time to offset the other shortcomings. I mean, the platform still has a lot of upcoming games to look forward to, but it is yet to be seen whether or not they will be successful. So far, there have been no announcements of any corporate changes triggered by this financial report, but I expect there will be something during the next few months. Corporations like Microsoft don't usually let drop revenue go unattended. Moving on to Ubisoft. Among other things, the company is working on a mysterious multiplayer project in the Assassin's Creed universe codenamed Invictus, and it looks like it's going poorly. So poorly, in fact, that even developers don't want to play it. According to GameRant, a notable leaker and gaming streamer claimed that a source inside the development team told him that everyone working on the game doesn't like it. If the leak is to be believed, the project is set to be a Fall Guys game based on the Assassin's Creed franchise, with Fortnite-like graphics, funny challenges, and a similar goal to a party game to reach a top 1. Specifically, the sources said that they don't know a single colleague who likes Invictus. Only the managers will probably keep smiling and singing the praises to this project. It's awful. Ridiculous animations, hideous and cartoonish characters, idiotic sound and visual effects, combat arenas. The concept is just plain dismaying. They also wonder who this game is even for and why it was made in the first place. And honestly, if this is true, I kind of agree. First off, I believe Fall Guys and Stumble Guys, a mobile version from a different studio, are outliers. Meaning that these games became successful because they were at the right place at the right time, with a concept that miraculously worked. I think it was more luck than not that these games managed to be successful. And since then, a lot of studios and publishers tried to replicate their success without any luck. Like Rumbleverse, for example. And while I understand the impulse to explore other avenues for the franchise and try to expand the brand to be live ops, is this really the best that Ubisoft could come up with? I don't know who brought up this idea, but if I was a fan of Assassin's Creed, I would never play this game. And if I were a fan of party games, there are plenty of those already. I just don't get why such a rich franchise would be turned into this. And if even the development team dislike it so much, oh man. Hopefully this is just a practical joke, or Ubisoft is going to have another big flop on the horizon. Also, quick thing, if you don't know who I am, my name is Alex, I'm a game producer and I'm here to help you get caught up on everything that's going on in the video game industry. Let's talk about hardware for a bit. A recent claim suggests that Sony plans to release a new version of the PlayStation Portal later this year. This comes from a user named KeplerL2 via NeoGAF, who's been known to leak information about Sony from time to time. According to them, the original Portal model was quite successful for the manufacturer, so they decided to make a new one with an OLED display and some additional features. While it is still an unconfirmed rumor, this might make sense to a certain extent. Specifically, if we're talking about the whole RAM situation, no news about a standalone handheld, and a big surprise update last year that allowed people to cloud stream a bunch of different games. The latter one seems to turn the tide for this console, as with it you don't need a PS5 standing nearby. And it almost makes it a standalone device in itself, at least from what I understand. In comparison, Steam Deck OLED was a huge success when it was released, so Sony might just be taking a page from Valve's playbook. All in all, I can definitely see a world where it is working, but I honestly can't believe that this accessory sold that well. Maybe it's just me, and I just don't get it. What about you? Have you tried Portal Console, or are you waiting for a 100% standalone device? Switching gears a bit to MindsEye, the studio behind probably the biggest failure and the worst game of 2025 is apparently ready to say goodbye to their publisher, IO Interactive. Exclusively reported by Insider Gaming, Build the Rocket Boy studio is planning to announce this decision quite soon, citing the desire to keep the publishing in-house as well as to gain more control over the studio's future. As a part of this change, it looks like a planned crossover between MindsEye and Hitman will be no more, and Build the Rocket Boy will be free to focus on fixes and content updates for their game. Honestly, I think it's a huge mistake for the studio and a huge weight off the shoulders of the publisher. With them no longer being associated with what appears to be a failed franchise, they can focus their efforts on building 007 and Hitman further. But for Build a Rocket Boy, a studio that has a track record of being the biggest flop of the year, blaming it all on quote-unquote internal and external saboteurs, and saying that around 300 staff members are at risk of being let go, a big publisher was the only thing they had going for them. Call me skeptical, but this doesn't sound like a good idea. For me, it feels like taking a broken car, uninstalling the brakes, and putting in another acceleration pedal. This might just be the thing that kills this studio altogether. Speaking of financial failures, Paradox Interactive also recently shared some financial results and they're also not great. While the company reported that its Q4 was stronger than the same one last year, increasing by almost 23%, it wasn't nearly enough, as it also reported a 162% drop in operating profit year-on-year. The company still managed to end the quarter with positive cash reserves, but it was mostly due to the titles that were still selling strongly, like Age of Wonders 4 and Cities Skylines 2. Recently released Bloodlines 2, however, did not meet quote-unquote commercial expectations, according to the CEO. The company decided not to include any sales numbers, so it's unclear just by how much those expectations weren't met. But at least the companies own their mistakes, right? By the way, have you played Bloodlines 2? What do you think? And lastly, let's talk about Nintendo and Dispatch. With the game going to Switch 2, a big topic recently surfaced about the censorship of the content. The gist of it is that ad hoc studios had to censor all the versions of the game to release it on this platform, and it kind of confused everyone. The game is known to have quite a few naughty bits, sure, but even an in-game feature allowing users to play with or without them wasn't enough for the platform holder, which left a lot of players wondering. Nintendo already has quite a few games that have nudity, for example. Games like The Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk 2077. So why did this game have to be the one to cut its content while others remain unchanged? What's even worse is that after a lot of people saw this news and demanded refunds, Nintendo decided to shift the blame to ad hoc studios, stating that the developers were the one who decided to censor the game in that way to meet the organizational requirements. The whole thing highlights a systemic communication failure between developers, platform holders, and consumers. I think that policies that require content adaptation should be paired with transparent, platform-wide communication to minimize consumer confusion and backlash, like this. And this whole situation was so poorly handled from all sides in my humble opinion. But all in all, if you haven't played Dispatch, I highly recommend it. One of the best games I played recently. And that's all I have for you today, friends. As usual, if you want to know more, all source links are in the description. And of course, clicking the like button helps this channel and brings you more and more interesting news each week. Subscribe if you are new, as I put out new videos every week. Thank you for making it this far. Have a great rest of the day, and that's Alex signing off for now. Cheers!